I'm 34, and for a while I thought grief was the worst thing that could happen to a person. Then I learned grief can be layered, like someone can take your world apart and then keep taking. My wife, Mireia, died 8 months ago. She had complications after giving birth, an aggressive kind of heart failure that came on fast. There were doctors and monitors and late-night phone calls, and then a morning when the hospital hallway felt too bright and too quiet at the same time. I went home carrying a small bag of her things and a newborn who still smelled like milk and disinfectant. Our son, Keon, was 3 months old when she died. Now he's 10 months old. I used to say he had Mireia's eyes. Now I'm careful with what I say. Most days it was just me, sleep-deprived and grieving, trying to keep a tiny human alive while my brain ran the same loop. How is she gone? How is he here? How do I do this without her? Before Mireia got pregnant, my life was built around my company, small, steady, not glamorous, software for regional delivery fleets, enough clients to keep a team employed, enough responsibility that the business didn't pause just because my life did. After she died, I tried to hold everything together. Some days I managed. Some days I stared at my inbox and felt my chest tighten, like the air had turned thick. 3 weeks after the funeral, Mireia's best friend, Celine, asked if she could come over. She sat on my couch like she was afraid the cushions would collapse under her guilt. Mireia told me there was someone else, she said, right around the time she got pregnant. She said there was a chance Keon might not be yours. In the moment, I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt insulted. Mireia was dead, and her best friend chose now to tell me something that could stain every memory I had left. I told Celine to leave. I said things I'm not proud of. When the door closed behind her, the house felt quieter than it ever had. I tried to forget her words. But once the idea exists, it doesn't disappear. It sits in the corner of your mind like a shadow. It turns every tender moment into a question. I didn't want to test Keon. I hated the thought of it. Because if he was mine, I would feel like a monster for doubting. And if he wasn't, I would feel like my entire life had been built on a lie. But the uncertainty was corrosive. So I did the test. The results came back on a Thursday afternoon. I was holding Keon on my hip and trying to answer a client email with one hand when the notification arrived. Probability of paternity, 0%. I sat on the floor, not dramatically, just because my legs stopped cooperating. Keon babbled, cheerful and unaware. I stared at the screen until the words became shapes. Then I started shaking. I remember thinking, very clearly, this child is innocent. And right behind it, and I don't know if I can do this. I called Celine back. She didn't gloat. She just sounded tired. I asked her who the father was. She said Mireia never told her. She said it happened once, during a lunch break at work, and Mireia begged her to never bring it up unless Mireia couldn't. Celine said she'd promised. A promise to the dead, paid for by the living. That night, I called Mireia's parents. They came over the next day, along with Mireia's sister, Alina. I showed them the result. Mireia's mother cried. Her father went stiff. Alina stared at the paper and whispered, "Oh my God." To my surprise, none of them attacked me. They were devastated and practical. Alina said carefully, "If you don't want to raise him, we can. We have a little boy already. We've talked about another child. We can adopt Keon and keep him in the family." I should have felt relief. For a few days after that meeting, I lived in a strange limbo. I changed diapers, warmed bottles, answered client calls, and tried to act normal while my mind replayed the same image. Keon's face in the morning light, trusting me completely, while a part of me flinched at the word son. Alina called twice just to check in, not to pressure me, to make sure I was eating, sleeping, functioning. She said, "No matter what you decide, he'll be loved." And something in me cracked, because I realized that was the first time anyone had offered me love without conditions. We agreed to do one more test with everyone present, not because I thought the science would change, but because my nervous system needed one last door to close. When the result came back the same, Mireya's father put his head in his hands and whispered, "I'm so sorry. Not sorry for Mireya, sorry for me." That apology did something important. It reminded me I wasn't crazy for feeling shattered. It reminded me that betrayal and grief can exist in the same body, and neither cancels the other. I should have felt relief, and part of me did. But another part of me felt sick, because agreeing meant admitting something I didn't want to admit, that I was not sure my love could survive this. I didn't hate Keon. I still don't. He grips my finger with absolute trust. He falls asleep on my chest, like it's the safest place in the world. But I couldn't ignore the other feeling, the one that came like poison in slow waves, the feeling of being used, of building a life with someone who quietly replaced reality with a version that served her. We agreed to slow down. No sudden handover. No dramatic scene. Time to breathe. Time to see what my heart could do when the shock wore off. Then my own family found a way to make everything worse. It started with my younger brother, Dario. He called with a soft voice and a hard agenda. He said he'd heard I was struggling. He said he wanted to help. Then he asked how the company was doing. A day later, my parents called. They didn't ask about Kian first. They asked about the business. "If you're overwhelmed," my mother said, "maybe it's time to bring Dario in. He can take weight off you." My father added, "You're not in a position to make big decisions right now." That sentence lit something cold in me, because it wasn't care. It was a claim. Over the next week, Dario started contacting my team directly, asking for quick updates, fishing for access, using my name like a key. One of my engineers messaged me, "Your brother wants to sit in on our client call." Another, he asked for admin credentials. Grief was already a stone in my chest. Now there was a second stone, pressure from my own family, using my vulnerability as leverage. So I did what I do when everything feels unstable. I stabilized the parts I could control. I locked down access. I changed passwords. I documented who had what permissions. I told my team, in writing, to confirm any request that came through family directly with me. Simple, clear, boring. The kind of boring that saves you. Then I called my parents. I said Dario would not be involved. Not now. Not later. My mother laughed like I was being dramatic. My father's voice sharpened. "You're emotional," he said. "You need guidance." Guidance. That word people use when they mean control. I said, "This company stays mine. And if you keep pushing, you'll be hearing from my lawyer." There was a long silence. Then my father said, "So that's what you've become?" I didn't answer, because I didn't want to give them a story they could tell later about my instability. I wanted facts. I wanted boundaries. I wanted my life back. That night, I sat in the nursery with Kian asleep in his crib and felt the strangest mix of emotions I've ever known. Grief for Mireya, anger at Mireya, love for Kian, fear that my love might not be enough, relief that her family wasn't trying to hurt me, rage that mine was. I realized I'd been living inside other people's expectations. Be the good husband. Be the good son. Be the strong man who absorbs chaos and turns it into something manageable. But absorbing chaos has a cost. It hollowed me out. So I made two decisions. First, I would not let my parents into my business. Not through guilt, not through pressure, not through my exhaustion. Second, I would not make a permanent decision about Kian while I was still bleeding. I told Alina I needed time. I told her I would consider adoption if I couldn't find my way back to love. But I wouldn't hand a child over just to numb my pain. And I wouldn't keep him just to prove I was good. I needed space to feel what was true. People keep asking me what the right choice is, as if right choices are clean. I don't have a clean answer yet. But I know this. Mireya left me grief. She left me questions. And she left me a child who did nothing wrong. My family tried to use my vulnerability to take something else from me. And after everything, the one thing I can still do is choose who gets access to my life. I won't let anyone write my story for me again. This concludes today's story. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing to support our work.